Welcome back, listeners, to BizBlend, where we talk about what it really takes to build businesses that don't just grow, but they grow with intention. I'm Sana, as always, here, and today I'm bringing a topic, a conversation for all of you, which I think we, a lot of us, we struggle with. How do you build genuine people first relationships in industries that are fundamentally driven by transactions? It's a legit question, listeners. Now, for example, real estates, then sales, then recruiting, these are fields which are heavily transactional driven. There's a pressure to close deals, hit targets, move fast, and yet most successful people in these spaces will tell you it is not about the hustle, it's about the human being on the other side of the table. So today's guest listeners knows this tension intimately. Liz Khodak bought her first property at 18. Yes, 18, after saving up through grade school. She started her career in New York's Garment Center, working in design and marketing, then pivoted to recruiting in the creative field when she moved to Charlotte. And this is what I find fascinating about her journey is that she didn't just stumble into real estate. She deliberately combined her recruiting experience, like really getting into people's lives, understanding what they actually need, with her long standing passion for property investment. And now Liz works in real estate in Charlotte, where she lives with her husband, twin daughters, and the new five poo. And full disclosure, when I kind of read her bio, I had a lot of questions. Like, how exactly at 18 is it possible to buy a property? Honestly, listeners, at 18, I didn't have an iota of idea about all these things, let alone about property or real estate. I mean, that's not typical. Then working in recruiting, then choosing real estate, a lot of questions in there. But then I'm very sure this is going to be a very interesting conversation, listeners. So let's get on to it. And Liz, welcome to BizBlend, and it's really an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Superb, superb. Okay, Liz, I want to start obviously like here. First property you bought at 18. I mean, that's quite uncommon. Because most 18-year-olds, I mean, I still figure out college or what exactly I'm gonna do, or maybe sometimes not even something related to job. Or maybe, kind of feeling that rebel thing inside me.
Yeah.
But you were thinking about home ownership. What was actually driving that decision? And I'm asking because I'm curious if it was strategic or if there is a story behind it that shaped how you think about money and stability.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So I think it's a little bit of both. My parents were immigrants. They're refugees to this country, and they found that owning property was, the biggest form of freedom. It meant financial freedom to them. So I think I saw that from early on growing up, and maybe I was a strange kid. Instead of spending my allowances, at the mall or at movies, I was saving away little bits of it and knew that I wanted to also own something. And when I got to college as a freshman, I lived in the dorms for about one semester. And then I said, I bet I could buy a property and have a roommate, and that roommate would pay me rent and that would pay my mortgage. So I did have, some help in terms of advice from my father, and that's what I did. I ended up buying my first property. I had a roommate. She paid the rent, which paid my mortgage, and that was the start of my investment journey.
Hmm. That actually makes sense, Liz. Actually makes sense. With all the journey there, um, then kind of a different thinking, and then family's history. Um, a lot of people hear stories like this, and they would still think that okay, that's great, but then I didn't have clarity at 18. Like I didn't have that discipline. Also, something that I would also say here, Liz, to be honest. But then how much of your early success do you think was about mindset versus circumstances? Like, because I think there's this narrative in business that anyone can do anything if they just want it badly enough. And I'm not sure if that's entirely fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a combination. I think it would be, naive to say that had I been under different circumstances or in a different place or a different time, that it all would have worked out that way, but I'm a true believer in things happen the way they're supposed to happen, and I do believe in mindset as a huge portion of the outcome. People who have a lot to be grateful are usually people who can see the gratitudes and see all the blessings in their life, even if they're not many, right, to someone else. And I do believe that um, if you really want something for the right reasons and you truly believe in yourself, you will figure out a way to make that happen. And I think there's plenty of examples throughout history that have proven that. So I think it's definitely a combination. I was lucky in a lot of ways, but I've always had the mindset of, I could do anything. And I always had the mindset that things happen and work out the way they're supposed to. So I wasn't burdened, I guess, by a lot of worry or concern. And that let me take the plunge, right? That let me take
Mhm.
those risks. So, yeah.
Mm, that also makes sense, Liz. And I also believe that uh, the ones who would be actually putting those efforts, who have actually would have tested the waters, they wouldn't say that. I mean, they would say, yes, I'm still trying. Maybe not right now,
Right.
maybe sometime in future. I did what I actually want. Or maybe uh, this is kind of the way or that journey that I have to go through to get or, kind of to stumble or maybe achieve what I exactly want. Or maybe that would lead to something else that would be better than what exactly I wanted. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. I think if you are of the mindset that the best things are worth, some fighting and you will make mistakes and that's part of the process and that's okay and actually probably necessary to get to where you want to go, then you'll continue to try. And of course, if those things knock you down, and you don't want to get back up, then you probably won't succeed.
Hmm. So let's moving on. Let's talk about recruiting. I mean, you uh, recruiting is absolutely like you are directly connecting with people. You are getting into getting to understand their priorities, matching them with roles. I mean, to me, it's a huge responsibility. And sometimes it feels like more not exactly recruiting, but more like a service because I know a couple of people who have worked in human resource, who have actually taken up a lot of interviews, and they have
Mhm.
actually spent time in helping them to understand that why they couldn't crack that interview, what exactly they need to do, what kind of action plan they can create and work on how they can, get to crack more interviews or maybe get the exact job that they desire. I mean, they have actually helped people because there's this very kind of a, negative connotation to people who are in HR or recruitment that, okay, they always say, I'll get back to you, but they never get back to you. So
Yeah,
it's quite a common not misconception, but kind of a negative connotation. But
sure.
again, it's a deeply personal work. So, what did that teach you about what people actually want when they are making a major decision? Whether it's a job or a house, and how did that change the way you approach sales?
Yeah, 100%. So I think that um, you really have to detach yourself a little bit from the outcome that you're looking for and really get down to what it is that that person is going through. And it's often a life transition of some kind, right? And what's driving that, and really trying to understand their pain points, where they're coming from, the stress that they're under. And a lot of times they aren't themselves clear on what they're looking for or why. And I think the more you can ask questions and really understand what's driving the decisions, what's needed in that person's life, what are they missing? Are they having challenges because their resume isn't, the way you would expect it to be? Or are they having issues in the interviewing process? Are they really looking for health insurance because something in their family is happening? You really have to understand what's driving it. And then you really act more as a coach if you're successful at it in being able to coach them through the process so they can be successful and find a position that fulfills what they're looking for. And then you're successful as well, right? Because you can match them to the right employer, the right position. So I think that that goes for everything, but trust kind of compounds the same way money does, like quietly over time. And you really need to build that trust with someone, and you do that through conversation, genuine questions, um, and really learning about and listening to what it is they're looking for. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And then it really highlighted the word trust in here because once again, it also is kind of an essential um, building, essential, a very foundational element of, all the discussions or transactions that happen in real estate as well. I mean, you are dealing with people here. Uh,
100%.
and it's such an important element of the relationship building. I mean, just before this episode, I was having another conversation, like how, relationship driven sales is better than, putting up ads. It was kind of a very
Right.
refreshing, discussion because yeah, ads, marketing, they have been timelessly very effective way to spread your word. But then more than the machines or the platforms or internet, I think that human to human connection, it will stand test of the time, whether it's AI or any other new technology that kind of disrupts. Human to human
Yeah,
connection is always to make, always will be there, timeless.
that's right. Because the ads and marketing are it's a way to get visible, right? It's visibility, awareness, but it's not building any type of relationship. And I truly believe that the most scalable businesses are built on trust and not pressure. When people feel safe and they feel informed and respected, I think they make better decisions, and those decisions last longer. And then they give referrals. And, yes, it's a transaction, but people don't wake up saying, like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be in this transaction. They're waking up actually in the middle of a life transition, whether it's a move, a divorce, a promotion, a new baby, a financial reset. And my job or anyone's job is really not to push the deal, but it's to help them think clearly when all those emotions and pressure is high. You want to be the calm, and you want to be the educator and a source of clarity and information, not an additional pressure point. Because you never know if that transition is a happy one or, not so happy.
That's true. That's true. And this another kind of thought that comes to my mind is the transitions. Like transitions can be sometimes very very challenging, even before getting on to act on those transitions. It's very natural that we'll have fear of changes, and you have actually navigated some very significant transitions like New York to Charlotte, design and marketing, then to recruiting, then to real estate, and then becoming a mother of twins, which is a whole other level of life change. I mean, I am getting a bit overwhelmed and kind of imagining everything. uh, but then yes, in my career also, like I've worked across different industries, different businesses, whether it's startups or enterprise. But then having to manage your career and then also your family, I think it's a Definitely. It's quite challenging, but then there's also a kind of fulfillment and a sense of belonging. And I think there are parallels also between both the worlds and here. So when you're in the middle of one of those major shifts, how do you actually make decisions? Like, what's your fundamental way to look at all these transitions?
In my personal life, you mean?
Um, uh, Both maybe both.
For both.
Uh huh.
Yeah, I think, for me personally, a lot of it is really being able to get into a calm space, and I think I try to do that for my clients as well. You know, their biggest decisions are usually happening when you're already overwhelmed and your system is overwhelmed, right? Whether it's emotional, personal, financial, whatever it is. So I think anytime if I'm going through a major life change or I'm working with a family that's navigating a major life change, I am very aware that there's that emotional dysregulation. And I think what I try to do is really slow the room down. I try to speak less and try to think about what the options are very clearly, remind myself or them, whoever I'm dealing with, that they aren't trapped. There's no like, this is it and you're stuck with this forever. Here are options. Let's calm down. Let's think about what the true feeling is, what's going to happen if we do step A or step B, and try to get some clarity around it. So I feel like people borrow your nervous system before they borrow your advice. So it's really important to try and find the calm in the storm and think through things a little bit more logically, if that makes sense. I don't know if I can name it, but it's always been a gift of mine, I guess, to really calm and kind of go from a point of clarity, if
No, no,
that makes sense.
no, it does. It does, Liz. Um, I think clarity is something that we all we are seeking, but sometimes sometimes I really feel like, just sleep on it and then we'll see about it later.
Yeah, I truly believe, sometimes you really have to listen to your gut, but
Yeah.
in order to be able to listen to your gut, you need to get rid of kind of that outside noise, the stuff that's causing the pressure, and some people are better at that and some aren't. So sometimes you have to help people through the process. But again, I don't feel like there's a decision. I mean, I guess there's some decisions you can make that are like a dead end, but hopefully you're making a decision and you can pivot or change, like things will
Mhm.
work out the way they're meant to if you're honest with yourself.
That's right. That's right. And I think sometimes we have to trust our intuition or trust our gut. But then also, Liz, because right now we are seeing so much of volatility. Um,
Mhm.
how do we how do we differentiate between intuition and maybe something that is coming from fear or comfort? Let's not take that
Mm.
risk. Let me stay within this only. I do not want any change to happen right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people feel that way, right? It's comfortable. And I I just think, and I mean, I struggle with that too sometimes. I think
Mhm.
everyone does, right? But I think if you're looking for something different, it depends on what your goals are. But if you're looking for something different and you have big goals, or you have a goal to be somewhere you aren't currently or be someone you aren't currently, then that's not going to happen if you continue to do things the same way you've been doing them. So I, it's hard, I think, sometimes to differentiate between your own voice, especially when you have family and other obligations and, the external uh, pressures. But, for me, I try to meditate a lot. I try to take some time, for myself to quiet that noise. I think it takes practice in being able to really listen to what your gut and your intuition is telling you. But in the end, I feel like the best things in life come from something that seemed pretty scary in the beginning, something risky. But yeah, that's not for everyone.
Mm. Mm. And I think one thing that you mentioned, which really kind of struck a chord with me, is not everyone can uh, hold themselves under pressure all the time. Sometimes, we cannot, and that's where I think it's from on both the sides that let's let's try to help maybe someone we know or someone we love if they are not able to uh, think or decide under pressure. Let's
Mm.
not help them. Let's not just expect that no, 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 you have to make a decision right now and be, oh my goodness, you're very, very weak. That's why you're not able to perform under pressure. Sometimes we have to help. And then or at the other end as well, sometimes it's okay. I think, it's a more human way to uh, acknowledge or be aware that maybe right now I'm immensely under pressure. It's not the right time for me to make a decision. Or maybe I should definitely seek out for help. Uh,
Yeah. Oh,
so,
right. I think, yeah, I heard somewhere once, like pressure gets compliance. Like if you're under pressure, you're just going to be compliant in whatever the decision is. So the goal is to somehow get out of that. And whether it's with someone you trust or hiring, a coach or whatever you're going through in that moment. But I think, yeah, you don't want to make decisions in that emotional space of just being under pressure. And I think, that's my goal is what, in recruiting and now in real estate. Yes, we're looking for a house, but I don't want you making a decision to buy a house under pressure because that's not necessarily the best decision for you and your family. So usually if you can take that pressure off, then the person can get clarity. And I think that I believe that to be my job, to help them get to that point where they can feel clear in what they're looking for and be able to make a decision that genuinely feels good.
hmm. And before we conclude, do you ever feel this dilemma? Many people say that business and feelings, emotions, um, anything which is human, it doesn't have any relevance in business. Sometimes you have to take hard decisions. Sometimes you have to um, let off all these emotions and feelings go and decide from a business perspective, not from a human perspective.
A good question. I think, I guess there's two sides to it. I think you 100% need emotion and empathy in business to do business well because as you said at the beginning of this, yes, these are transactions, but we're human beings and um I think trust is at the root of everything in business if you want it to be sustainable. So I don't believe you can build that without having emotion and having some personality. But at the same time, I think you do have to, like, me as a professional, I might feel, a certain house is ugly, or I might not like how someone treated someone. But sometimes I have to put my feeling aside towards that because my job is to do what's best for my client, and I represent them. So I think there's both. I think I do see sometimes people take things very personally and they let that muddy their decision making, for their clients a little bit or it gets confused. So I think as long as you're aware and you are being genuine and you are making sure that you are a calm, confident, service provider to your client and you're not putting your emotions first, it's their emotions, then I think you're okay. But I can't imagine doing it without emotion. And we're just robots.
Very well. Amen. I don't know about other listeners, but this is something that I have right from the beginning of my career as well. Kind of uh, stayed with this. I mean, that has been one of my way of approaching everything. Not that,
Yeah.
everything has to be emotional, but at least respecting someone else's emotions and their uh, thoughts and their opinions as well. And
100%.
especially when you are in a world which is transactional heavy, whether it's sales or real estate or it's very much frontline. I think emotions, they are very important. Once again, trust, yes. Both of these are so much directly connected to each other. Yeah.
For sure.
Super. This was a very once again a very refreshing discussion. And I'm very sure our listeners will have lots to share with you. Maybe they have some conflicting thoughts, or maybe they would like to share their own experiences as well, and they would also like to seek more wisdom from you, explore more about the work that you do. So, how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, sure. I'm on Instagram at my handle is at Liz Takes It Home, or they can always email me at Khodak, Khodak, at helenadamsrealty.com. And my website's kodakhomes.com. That's Kodak with an H.
Super, super. So, listeners, there you go. I'll have all the links mentioned in the show notes. And so just refer to them, find them attached along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And listeners, I think this is very much safe to say that Liz has made some unconventional choices from a really young age. We discussed about buying property at 18, shifting careers multiple times, choosing a business model that prioritizes relationships over rapid scaling. And I think none of that happened by accident. It required clarity about her values, willingness to be patient, and probably some uncomfortable moments where Liz had to trust that her approach would pay off even when it looked different from what everyone else was doing or maybe was saying. So, Liz, thank you so much. I really appreciate your willingness to, sit with some of the harder questions. It's really good.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And thank you to all our listeners for tuning into this episode of BizBlend. And if today's conversation connected with you or maybe challenged you, I want you to ask yourself, what am I optimizing for? Am I building something that requires me to show up as someone I am not? Or am I creating space for my actual values to drive my decisions? Because that answer will tell you a lot about whether you are on the right path or not. Until then, this is your host Sana, and you have been listening to BizBlend. Stay tuned, and I'll be back with another interesting conversation. Thank you.